Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. If you guys haven't seen it, in our last challenge video we tried to beat Pokemon Crystal with only a Machop. Go check that out after this video, link for it will be in the description. If somehow you guys didn't read the title of this video before clicking on it, we're going to try and beat Pokemon LeafGreen with only our starter and no pausing. Before we get into the rules, let me just explain what I mean by no pausing. So pausing is pushing the start button to pause the game and do stuff in the menu. I won't be able to do most of those things. I will be allowed to do a few things, which will be explained in the rules. So without further ado, let's get into the rules. Let's start off with rule number 1. I am only allowed to use my starter to do damage in battle. Next up we have rule number 2. I am not allowed to pause the game to do any of the following: heal, use TMs, or equip held items. I am however allowed to use HMs and teach HMs to my Pokemon, but not my starter. Now the next rule is the reason that I am allowed to use HMs, and is I am not allowed to use glitches or exploits during this run. Because of course you could get past the HM usage if you had glitches or exploits, so I just think it's not fun to watch that, so I will not be using glitches and exploits, and I will be using HMs to get through those areas. And the final rule, which I think should be pretty obvious, I am not allowed to use healing items in battle either, and for the entire run I am only allowed to heal at Pokemon Centers. Well, with the rules out of the way, let's get into the challenge. To start off the challenge, I have to name my character, and I name him Dead like always because you all know I'm dead inside. And finally, I am able to name my rival Gary, the superior rival in all Pokemon games. Now that means it's time for me to choose my starter. But before I do that, I want you guys to go into the comments and try and guess the starter I chose. If you choose correctly, you will receive 0 reward. Now that sounds like a pretty good deal. Now I'll give you a few seconds to comment. Now if you guys had guessed Squirtle in the comments, you were completely right. The main reason that I chose Squirtle is because he is the best Pokemon for the Elite Four when he's fully evolved. Charizard and Venusaur have a rough time in some members of the Elite Four, and the Elite Four is going to be the hardest part of this challenge because I have to get through the entire Elite Four without healing, not even once. So yeah, that's why I chose Squirtle. Now as for the name for my Squirtle, I named it Just Add H2O. If you get that reference, you're pretty cool. Pretty old reference. That means it's time for us to battle our rival Gary. Unfortunately I lose this battle because he hits a lucky crit taking me out. So that's the end of that. Shortly after defeating my rival, it's time for me to try out my future career in the postal service by delivering a package to Professor Oak. Man, don't you just love child labour? Next I decide to head to Viridian City and I run into my rival, which means it's time for a rematch. To start off the battle against my rival, he sends out his Pidgey. Unfortunately, his Pidgey does get one stand attack on me, but I managed to take it out with 2 water guns. Next up, Gary sends out his Bulbasaur, and unfortunately Bulbasaur doesn't learn any grass moves to level 10, so it's just a tackle fest until eventually I do take it out. I do miss a few because of the stand attack from earlier though. Shortly after the battle with my rival, I arrive in Viridian Forest.
Meanwhile,
in Viridian Forest, after completely squashing a bug trainer, Squirtle decides to evolve, but I don't let it, for a reason that I'll explain later on. Now if I didn't explain this in the rules because I might have forgot, I am letting my starter evolve before the end of this game, just because I know I won't be able to defeat the Elite Four without him being evolved fully into a Blastoise. If you guys have a problem with that, let me know in the comments because you'll see. After leaving Viridian Forest, we arrive in Pewter City, which you know what that means. It means it's time for the first gym battle, yeah! Against Brock, who's a rock type trainer. So you probably assume how this battle's gonna go. So he sends out his first Geodude, which gets one shot with Water Gun. Then he sends out his Onix, which, you guessed it, gets one shot with Water Gun. What an intense battle that was for the first gym. I'm gonna take my time to say this now. The early game in this run is pretty easy, so there won't be much struggling in many of the gyms. Just saying, so I don't get any complaints about it being too easy of a challenge. After defeating Brock, I do let my Squirtle evolve, and the only reason I didn't let it evolve earlier is because, as you saw, I wanted it to learn Bite at level 18, instead of having to wait another level 19 for it to learn Bite. Which seems kind of stupid because it won't really be useful, but, you know, earlier is earlier. Shortly after leaving Pewter City, we arrive at Mount Moon. The only thing of significance that happened in Mount Moon was choosing my fossil, which will have 0 implication on this run. Now, can you guys guess which fossil I chose, even though it's not even important? That's right, I chose the Helix fossil, because everyone chooses the Helix fossil. After adequately wasting your time, we finally leave Mount Moon. The first thing I do after leaving Mount Moon is teach my Wartortle Mega Punch. Now this is not against the rules because I'm not using a HM or a TM, and I'm not pausing the game, this is like a move tutor thing. So yeah, just before I get that in the comments. If you guys are wondering why I also don't teach a Mega Kick, it's because kicks are inferior to punches. Everyone knows that. Now that learning Mega Punch is out of the way, it's finally time for the second gym battle against Misty. Now earlier, if you guys remember, I didn't let Squirtle evolve at level 16 because I wanted it to learn Bite at level 18. It was to this battle. but now I realise that's stupid because it would have already learnt it even as a Wartortle because I'm level 25. Yeah, I'm an idiot, guys. You know, guess that's a deal with it, I guess. Now, I do get confused by the Staryu, but somehow I get through the confusion and hit it with a bite, taking it out. Next up is Starmie. Now, if you guys watched any of my other challenge videos, I never get lucky, but somehow I get super lucky and break through 2 confusions in a row against Starmie, taking it out with bite. Now, if you're good at math, 2 plus 1 is 3. So I got confusion 3 times in that entire battle, and got through it each time. Like, come on. Super lucky. After defeating Misty, it's time for another battle with my rival. To start off this battle, my rival sends out his Pidgeotto. Fortunately, Pidgeotto goes down pretty quickly to 3 water guns. Next up, Gary sends out his Bulbasaur, which is level 18. But for some reason he hasn't evolved it, considering Bulbasaur evolves to level 16, which is awkward. Now I get lucky against Bulbasaur and hit Mega Punch first try, and I hit a crit, taking it out in one shot, which was quite surprising. Next up is his Abra, which clearly goes down to only 1 bite. Last but not least, Gary sends out his Rattata. Quick question, tangent. Do you know if it's pronounced Rattata, Rattata, or Rattata, or whatever? I don't know, I've never really known. I'm just gonna say Rattata for the rest of the game. If you have any issue with that, I don't know, deal with it, I guess. After defeating my rival, I finally arrive in Vermilion City, which means it's already time for another battle with my rival. Yay! Now to start off the battle, my rival sends out his Pidgeotto, which I try to take out with 1 Mega Punch, and I almost do, but I can't, so I have to take it out with a Water Gun. Next up, my rival decides to send out his Ivysaur. I start out with a Mega Punch, which does just over half health, but then it uses Sleep Powder, and I thought this was the end of the battle, I'll be honest. Now somehow I get unbelievably lucky again and wake up my next turn and take it out with a Mega Punch. How the hell am I getting this lucky? Now next up he sends out his Raticate, which I hit once with Water Gun with a crit, taking it out. And for some reason I feel like I hit it so hard that I might have killed it. That's weird. Anyway, last up, Gary sends out his Kadabra. Now for some reason against Kadabra I accidentally used Rapid Spin because I'm an idiot.
I'm an idiot! You're an idiot!
Now because of my stupidity, Kadabra gets a free attack where it uses Confusion, and unluckily it does confuse me. But because for some reason during this run I am just being insanely lucky, I break through the confusion, hit it with Bite, take out Kadabra, and win the battle against Gary. After defeating my rival, the ship's captain makes me rub his back so I can get a HM. This is pretty weird considering I'm 11 years old. After getting cut and realizing none of my Pokemon can learn it, I have to catch another Pokemon, so I decided to catch a Sandshrew and name it Sandy Cheek. Unfortunately S wouldn't fit. Now with that out of the way, I'm finally able to battle the first difficult gym of this run, the Electric Gym. And because like I said earlier, I'm an idiot, I didn't go heal before this battle, so I'm slightly weak before the battle even started. Now firstly I decided to use Mega Punch on Voltor, but it doesn't take it out, and then unfortunately he heals it with a Super Potion, but then I take it out with 2 Water Guns anyway. Now next up, Lieutenant Surge sends out his Pikachu, which unfortunately goes down to 1 Mega Punch. Unfortunate for him anyway. Now unfortunate for me, Wartortle is affected by static and then gets paralyzed, which sucks a lot. And because I'm paralyzed, Raichu gets the first attack and it takes me out with Shockwave, which means I lose, unfortunately. Now after leveling up to level 34, I decided to try the gym again. This time around I get up to Raichu with 4 health because I one-shot his other 2 Pokemon. Now to start off the battle I use Mega Punch, but it doesn't take it out, it does about 3/4 of its health, and then it uses Thunder Wave to paralyze me. And then to add insult to injury, his Raichu uses Double Team to try and raise his evasiveness, but somehow, in a miracle of God, I hit it with Mega Punch again, taking it out. How the hell am I getting so lucky with all this crap? And with Raichu down, we have finally defeated Lieutenant Surge, the Electric Gym, and probably the hardest gym at the start of this game. Shortly after defeating Lieutenant Surge, Wartortle evolves into Blastoise. Shortly after Wartortle evolved, we reach the end of Rock Tunnel. Shortly after that, we arrive in Lavender Town. Which means yes, it is time for another rival battle. Now to start off the battle, Gary sends out his Pidgeotto. Now I start off the battle by using Mega Punch, which unfortunately misses, but he uses Gust, which doesn't miss, but fortunately it only does a little bit of damage. My next Mega Punch does hit, but unfortunately doesn't take it out, and then he uses Sand Attack to lower my accuracy. Because Sand Attack lowered my accuracy, I miss my next Water Gun. He uses Quick Attack, and then fortunately I take it out with another Water Gun. Next up, Gary sent out his Ivysaur, and here I was a little bit scared, but for some reason I got lucky again and hit a critical hit on my Mega Punch, taking it out one shot. Next up, Gary sends out his Gyarados, and for some unknown reason, I hit 2 Mega Punches in a row without missing, taking him down to almost a slither of health, and then I take out his Gyarados with 1 bite. Next up, he sends out his Growlithe, which at this point is an absolute joke, and I one-shot with Water Gun. Last up, Gary sends out his Kadabra, which I tried to use Bite on but missed because it lowered my accuracy earlier. Luckily, my next bite hits, taking it out in one shot and defeating Gary once again. After the battle, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. I couldn't quite put my finger on it. Mustn't be that important. After scratching my brain for a while about what was missing from Gary's last battle, I arrive in Celadon City, which means it's time for another gym battle. Up to the plate this time, Erica, the Grass-type gym leader. To start off the battle, Erica sent out her Victory Bell. I started off by using Mega Punch, which almost took it out, and then it uses Stun Spore, which unfortunately paralyzed me. Because I'm paralyzed, next turn Victory Bell gets to go first, and it uses Giga Drain, which drains a bit of my health and heals it. But unfortunately for it, it's not able to survive my next Mega Punch and I take it out. Next up, Erica sends out a Tangela, which puts up a bit of a fight because now I'm paralyzed, I miss a few times. But I do manage to take it out with 2 Mega Punches, but unfortunately it takes a lot of my health with it. Last up, Erica sends out her Vileplume, which unfortunately I get super unlucky and I get affected by paralysis twice, and it takes me out with 2 Giga Drains. At level 45 I have a lot more success with this battle and I get up to Vileplume with a decent amount of health. Now something amazing happens here, and me and Vileplume both miss like 3 times in a row, which is insane. And then I'm like, screw it, and I use Bite, taking out Vileplume and winning the battle. After defeating Erica and completely squashing it like a million Team Rocket grunts, it's time for the first battle against Giovanni. To start off the battle, he sends out Onyx, which obviously goes down to only 1 Water Gun. Next up he sends out Rhyhorn, which also goes down to 1 Water Gun. Who would have thought? Now next up he sends out his Kangaskhan, which actually doesn't go down to 1 Water Gun. It takes 1 Water Gun and 3 bites to take out Kangaskhan. But with Kangaskhan down and out, we have defeated Giovanni. After defeating Giovanni, I return to Pokemon Tower in Lavender Town. Inside of Pokemon Tower, a ghost appears, which I use a Silph Scope to turn into a Marowak, which I swiftly kill with 2 Water Guns.
I ain't afraid of no ghost.
Inside of Pokemon Tower, I free Mr. Fuji, who gives me a Pokemon Flute. With said Pokeflute, I am able to wake up a sleeping Snorlax. Imagine saying that 100 times fast. At first I tried to capture the Snorlax so I could join my team, so I could be like moral support, but then it was being an asshole, so I decided to kill it with Bite. Now the Snorlax gets to sleep forever. After brutally butchering that Snorlax, I arrive in Fuchsia City, which means it's time for us to battle the Fuchsia City gym leader, Koga. First out he sends out his Coughing, which goes down to a Mega Punch and a Bite, but not before it hit me with a smoke screen to lower my accuracy. Next up, Koga sends out his Muck. Now his Muck is a bit of an annoyance. I hit it once with Mega Punch doing about half health, and then I missed 2 more because of the lowered accuracy, but I do manage to take it out with a second Mega Punch. Next up he sends out his Coughing, which I use Bite on, which almost takes it out, and then he wastes 2 Hyper Potions on it, but I do eventually take it out with only a few more bites. Last but not least, Koga sends out his Weezing, which tries to go for Toxic right off the bat. Unfortunately for him, it misses. I unfortunately also missed 2 Mega Punches, but I do eventually take Weezing out with only a few more bites, winning the battle against Weezing and defeating Koga. After defeating Koga, I decide to head to Cinnabar Island, which means it's time for us to battle the Fire-type gym leader, Blaine. Now to start off the battle, Blaine sends out his Growlithe, and because I'm an idiot, I decide to use Mega Punch, which misses, instead of using Water Gun. Fortunately, next time around I'm not an idiot and I do use Water Gun to take out Growlithe in one shot. Next up, Blaine sends out his Ponyta, which of course goes down to only 1 Water Gun, because it's a weak Pokemon. Next up, Blaine sends out an actual useful Pokemon, Rapidash. Unfortunately, Rapidash doesn't go down to 1 Water Gun, however it does go down to 2 Water Guns. To finish the battle off, Blaine sends out his Arcanine, which like Rapidash goes down to only 2 Water Guns, ending the battle and defeating Gym Leader Blaine. Now after defeating Blaine, I head to Silphco where I have to battle my rival again. This time around, he hasn't got a Pidgeotto anymore, he has a Pidgeot, but fortunately enough, Pidgeot goes down to only 1 Hydro Cannon. Next up, Gary sends out his Venusaur, which because I have to recharge, gets a free sleep powder off, putting me to sleep. Unfortunately for me, I'm asleep for a few turns, so he gets a few Razor Leaves off, bringing me down to about a quarter health. But luckily he misses one. I manage to hit him with a Skull Bash, and then finally take him out with a Water Gun, just to add insult to injury. Next up, Gary sends out his Gyarados, which unlucky for him goes down to 1 Hydro Cannon. Next up, Gary sends out his Growlithe, which even though I have to recharge, luckily his Growlithe can't do anything to me, and I take it out with only 1 Water Gun. Last but not least, Gary sends out his Alakazam, which I probably could have used Bite on, but I was just lazy and used Hydro Cannon, taking it out in one shot, winning the battle and defeating Gary. After defeating my rival once again, it's time for another battle with Giovanni. To start off the battle, Giovanni sends out his Nidorino, which goes down pretty easily to 2 water guns. Next up he sends out his Nidoqueen, which also goes down to 2 water guns pretty easily. Next up, Giovanni sends out his Kangaskhan, which goes down to 1 water gun and 1 Skull Bash. Next up, Giovanni sends out his Rhyhorn, which goes down to 1 water gun. And with that out of the way, we have defeated Giovanni for the 2nd time. Oh, and also we received the Master Ball from the leader of the Silphco, which is not really important because they're not going to use it. After defeating Silphco, it is finally time to head to the 7th gym and battle Sabrina. To start off the battle, Sabrina sends out her Kadabra, which goes down to a single bite. Next up, Sabrina sends out Mr. Mime, probably the creepiest Pokemon ever. It's okay everyone, I took out Mr. Mime in 1 shot with Bite. Next up is Venomoth, which goes down to only 2 bites. Next up, Sabrina sent out her final Pokemon, Alakazam. Me, being a dumbass that I am, decides to use Skull Bash instead of Bite on Alakazam. Luckily though, Skull Bash still takes it out, winning the battle and defeating the 7th gym. Speaking of gyms, with the 7th gym defeated, it's time to head back to Viridian City and challenge the 8th gym leader, Giovanni. This being the 8th gym, you probably assume this was a pretty hard battle, but you'd be absolutely wrong. I pretty much one-shot every single one of these Pokemon, making this probably the easiest gym in the run. But trust me when I say this is just the calm before the storm, because after this we have to verse the Elite Four, which will not be fun, trust me. Now if you guys are enjoying watching Giovanni get his ass handed to him, don't forget to leave a like on the video, it really helps me out. And if you want to subscribe, make sure you do that as well, with post notifications on so you can get more of my videos. So without further ado, let's continue with the video. At this point in the battle, we're up to his final Rhyhorn, which goes down to 1 Hydro Cannon, and with that we have defeated Giovanni and beaten the last gym. After defeating Giovanni, it is time for the final rival battle. Now if you guys are wondering, before I battled my rival for the last time, I decided to get rid of Skull Bash from Mega Kick, just because it has more PP. Pidgeot goes down to 1 Mega Kick and 1 Bite. Next up is Venusaur. Now the battle against Venusaur starts off really good because my Mega Kick does just over half health, but then I start being stupid and missing with Mega Kick, and then eventually he takes me out with Razor Leaf. I guess it's time to try again. After resetting the battle a few more times, I eventually get up to Venusaur again and I take it out with 2 Mega Kicks without missing. Next up is Rhyhorn, which I take out with 1 Water Gun, which is also a crit, but I don't know if that mattered or not. Next up he sends out his Gyarados, which I try to use Hydro Cannon on to take it out in 1 shot, but it only does about half damage. And then his Gyarados uses Rain Dance and then Hydro Pump, and then I eventually take it out with a Mega Kick. Next up he sends out his Growlithe, which there's no way his Growlithe is surviving a Rain Dance Water Gun, so I easily take it out in 1 shot. Finally, Gary sends out his Alakazam, which I take out in 2 bites, after it wastes its turn using a Calm Mind. But with that out of the way, we have defeated Gary for the last time before the Elite Four. After travelling through Victory Road, we finally arrive at the Indigo Plateau, which means it's time for us to battle the Elite Four. First up is Elite Four member Lorelei. First up, Lorelei sends out a Dugong. I almost take it out in 1 shot with Mega Kick, but it survives on a little slither of health, and then she heals up with a full restore. It takes 1 more bite and 1 more Mega Kick to take out Dugong. Next up, she sends out her Cloyster, which also takes 1 Mega Kick and 1 bite to take out. Next up, she sends out her Slowbro, which falls to the power of 2 of my Blastoise's mighty bites. Next up, he sends out his Jinx, and this is where the battle starts to go downhill for me. I try to use Mega Kick and miss, and then it puts me to sleep with Lovely Kiss. Now that I'm asleep, Jinx keeps hitting me with Ice Punch and then eventually uses Attract. I do get up eventually and use Bite and get through the attraction, but it's too late because it freezes me again. What kind of fucking bad luck is this? Fortunately enough, I managed to defrost on the next turn and take it out with another Bite. Finally. Now against Lapras, I try and start out with Mega Kick, but I miss. So then I try to go to Hydro Cannon and forget that it has Water Absorb, like an idiot. After I try and take it out with a few bites, it's too late and it ends up finishing me with only a few more Body Slams and Ice Beams. Well, I guess it's time to try again. Now I did try Lorelei a few more times at level 85, and most of the time I lose with Lapras, sometimes I lose even earlier. So I decided it was time to grind up to level 100 at this point, because I'm going to have to do it anyway later on in the Elite Four, so I might as well do it now. Now at level 100 I managed to make it up to Lapras with a lot more health, and I take out Lapras pretty easily. So there we go, I've defeated the first Elite Four member, Lorelei. Now that we've defeated Lorelei, it's time for the second Elite Four member, Bruno.
What's up? I'm Bruno.
To start off, Bruno sends out his Onix, which I take out with only 1 Water Gun. Next up, Bruno sends out his Hitmonchan, which is taken out with only 2 Water Guns. To follow that up, he sends out his Hitmonlee, which also gets taken out with 2 Water Guns. Next up, Bruno sends out his Machamp, which I'm scared of, so I take it out with Hydro Cannon because I don't want it taking me out in one shot. Last but not least, Bruno sends out his Onyx, which tries to take me out with Earthquake, but his Earthquake does basically no damage, and then I take it out with a Water Gun, finally defeating the second Elite Four member, Bruno. Next up on the chopping block, Elite Four member, Agatha. To start off the battle, Agatha sends out her Gengar, which goes down easily to 1 bite. Next up, Agatha sends out her Golbat, which goes straight for Poison Fang, which poisons me, which means I automatically restart. Now, if you're confused, the reason I automatically restart whenever I'm poisoned or anything like that is because I have to make it through another 2 fights after this one. There's no way I'm going to do that while I'm poisoned. So yeah, after about a dozen resets, I finally get a run where Golbat doesn't go for Poison Fang straight away, and I managed to take it out with 1 Mega Kick. Next up is Arbok, which I managed to take out with only 2 Water Guns. Next up is Agatha's second Gengar, which also goes down to only 1 bite. To finish off the battle, Agatha sends out her final Pokemon, Haunter, which also goes down to 1 bite because it's weaker than Gengar. And with that out of the way, we have defeated the third Elite Four member, Agatha. After defeating Agatha, it is time for the final Elite Four member, Lance. To start off the battle, Lance sends out his Gyarados, which goes down to 1 Mega Kick and 1 bite. Next up, he sends out his Dragonair, which unfortunately paralyzes me with Thunder Wave, but I do manage to take it out with 2 Water Guns. Next up, he sends out his second Dragonair, and then he uses Outrage twice, gets confused, and I take it out with 2 Water Guns. Next up, Lance sends out his Dragonair, and I'm sorry to say, I think this is where the no pause run ends, because I can't take out Dragonair. I tried about 2 dozen times, and every time I get to him, I'm on low enough health that he can take me out once without rage. So I decided that this is what we're going to do. I am not going to heal at all, and I'm going to stay on this amount of health, but I am going to teach myself into new moves, so I can do more damage and hopefully beat Lance. Let's see how it goes. Now, the moves I decided to teach Blastoise were Surf to replace Water Gun, Blizzard to replace Hydro Cannon, and Strength to replace Mega Kick. Even with all my new moves, I barely make it to Dragonite with 98 health, and it still takes 3 Surfs to take him out. In hindsight, I probably should have used Blizzard, to be honest. Last but not least, Lance sends out his Aerodactyl, which goes down to only 1 Surf. With that out of the way, we have defeated the final Elite Four member, Lance. Now with Lance out of the way, it means it's finally time for us to verse the champion, Gary. Now to start off the battle, Gary sends out his Pidgeot, which goes down so easily to 1 Surf. Next up is Venusaur, which goes down to only 1 Blizzard, which was quite surprising. Next up he sends out his Alakazam, which almost goes down to 1 bite, but unfortunately doesn't. It uses Psychic and then it heals all the way back up, but it does go down to a 2nd bite. Next up he sends out his Rhydon, which I take out in 1 shot with Surf. Now I try to take out his Gyarados, which is his next Pokemon with Blizzard, but unfortunately it doesn't take it out, but his Gyarados does take me out with Thrash. After resetting the fight about 5 or 6 more times, I do manage to get up to Gyarados on 60 health. Now I go for Blizzard against Gyarados, hoping it'll take out half its health again, but for some reason I hit a critical, taking it out in 1 shot. Last but not least, Champion Gary sends out his Arcanine. It tries to take me out with Extreme Speed, but unlucky for it, it doesn't take me out in 1 shot, but I take it out in 1 shot with Surf, meaning I've beaten the champion of the Elite Four, Gary. And that means it's time for us to enter our Pokemon into the Hall of Fame. Somehow we made it all the way to the end of the game with just our Blastoise and absolutely no healing inside or outside of battle. Just pretty amazing. Unfortunately, we weren't able to beat the game without HMs or TMs, which was kind of a bit hurtful, but you know, I wasn't expecting to make it all the way to Elite Four without them either, so that was pretty cool. So yeah, we did it guys, we did it. Now I would be up to try this challenge again with different Pokemon and in different games if you guys want to see that. So if you do, make sure you leave it in the comment section below that you want to see it, and leave a like on the video to let me know that you want to see it. Now before I end the video and tell you guys to like and subscribe, I do want to give a shout out to somebody. Go check him out, GameChamp3000. He's the inspiration for this video. He did a series where he tried to beat, I think it was Breath of the Wild without pausing, and I thought that would be pretty cool in Pokemon. So definitely go check him out. The link for him will be in the description. So now, yeah. Now it's time for the same old spiel, you know what I mean? If you guys liked the video, leave a like on it. If you want to subscribe, go ahead and do that. Make sure you put post notifications on so you get the notifications of my videos. And yeah, go check out the playlist, which will be in the bottom right of the screen right here. Check out more of these challenge videos. And if you want to subscribe, there'll be a little icon on the top bottom left where you can subscribe to the channel. So yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.